Okay, so you all are able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, Tushar. Yeah.
Yes,
So-
Tushar.
Yes, Tushar.
Okay. So at very high level, right, what is Snowflake? So Snowflake is, in very layman's language, if you talk about, Snowflake is a simple, cloud-based database. Database as a service, I would say. So you can register, you will get a URL, and you can select whatever plan you want to subscribe for, and Snowflake will manage entire platform for you. It will be a database as a service, so you don't need to really worry about number of hardware clusters like CPU, memory, how many servers you need to procure, and all those things, right? So Snowflake will internally manage everything. You just need to select your capacity, and you need to specify which kind of subscription you want, based on whether it's an enterprise or a higher one. So based on that, they will spin up a service. So looking at the use case, right? So you must have heard about OLTP and OLAP kind of processing, right? So OLTP meaning it's an online transformation processing, right? So it's like a backend application of your web services or any website, and it's pretty much online transactions which keep on happening on every few minutes or every few seconds, right? So those databases are little different. Whereas when you talk about the OLAP is nothing but typically the databases which are used for online analytical processing. So Snowflake is highly recommended for OLAP kind of a platform, wherein you need to perform some sort of analytics. So analytics meaning you are doing some data filtering, you are doing data data slice and dice. You are looking at some information to see how was my sales trend, or um, uh, whatever you have planned versus the actuals, how those trends are looking like. So and a lot of aggregation can happen, right? So for those kind of workloads, this particular platform is best suited. So as I mentioned, this is a software as a service. So you will get this database as a service on cloud, and uh, and especially when you select the Snowflake subscription, right? So internally, they need to spin up some clusters and whatever the data that resides in the database, right? So they provide three options for you to select. Okay, so some of the companies are already on AWS. Some companies would be preferring Microsoft as their cloud partner, right? So accordingly, organizations can choose whether they want to go for Amazon Web Services as their backend or Azure, Microsoft Azure as a backend. It is all together upon person who is trying to subscribe for, and Snowflake will take that particular platform as a backend, and they will spin up a cluster for you. So it's very simple. Just for you guys to practice, if you want to do that, so you can go to a snowflake.com, and they provide option to create a ID. You can just register, and you'll be provided with a 30 days trial version. So you can spin up any of your cluster, you can set up a database, you can create tables, views, whatever you want, and then play around with the SQLs. So any question on this one before we move on to the next slide?
Hello. Yeah, hi Tushar. One question.
Yeah,
So,
please.
as you said, like on backend, it uses all these three cloud services, right? So it always uses these cloud services, or based on our capacity, Snowflake also gives provide their own uh, like a Snowflake have their own cluster or
No,
own
no.
memory capacity.
Yeah, so memory is typically required for the computing, right? But they need to host this database as a service on some platform. So these are the three partners, cloud partners, on which you can host a service. You cannot host Snowflake as on-premise database or any other cloud partner. So as of now, these are the three which are provided by Snowflake.
Okay.
So it is very, straightforward. Just like, for example, if you want to create a Gmail account, right? So what you do is you log into Gmail, and you will be provided with a login page or sign up page. You put all your information and your Gmail account gets created, right? So it's very similar to that. You log into Snowflake, and they will ask certain things, your basic information, and also give option to select a cloud provider. Once you specify that, they will spin up a service for you. Your subscription will be created. You will be provided with a URL, and that URL you can use for accessing your Snowflake environment. Okay, so we'll move on. Another question is, why do we need Snowflake? I mean, what's difference between the Snowflake versus the other data warehouses, or typical other databases which are used for the analytical process? So most of these databases usually take longer time for data processing because of architecture, because of legacy kind of a design that they have. So even just not the architecture. There are also databases like Oracle, Teradata, DB2, which have actually improved their architecture, and they are also in the massive parallel processing kind of architecture, wherein you have one master and multiple slave nodes or worker nodes, which process the data and produce the output in very efficient way. But if you compare the traditional databases which are running on the on-premise kind of hardware, right? So you typically, companies used to procure their infrastructure like powerful servers. Then they used to configure the memory, disks, and they used to host the database on those servers. But with a cloud kind of architecture, you can change the capacity of those clusters dynamically. You can increase the number of servers behind the scene with a single click. You can decrease them if you don't want, but that is not so possible with the infrastructure that you maintain on your premise, right? So so typically the queries run very slow in the traditional databases. If they're running for 10 plus minutes, the Snowflake will be running them in comparatively faster speed. High concurrency. High concurrency. This means you might be having a variety of workloads. Say during the business hours, 8 to let's say 5, right? So you will have typically 8 to 10 very heavy workload for running the reports, consuming the data for analysis, as it is the starting of their business day, right? So that time the database going down, or database performing very poorly because there is a sudden workload increase, and because of which your queries are running late, or they are getting queued in the database, and to get them processed, it takes time, right? Because it is internally building some queue sort of processes. So what happens is you can adjust your query execution concurrency. You can assess the workload, and you can balance the capacity of your Snowflake processing as per the increasing and decreasing demand of concurrency. So let's say a number of users are more on a particular time frame, right? So you can increase the capacity, and Snowflake will add more clusters, and then you can shut down or pause those clusters when not required. So that is also provided. And productivity loss. So let's say you want to restore some data, or you want to replicate data from one environment to another, right? So you typically have production, then quality, or QA environment, or UAT environment, then you have dev environment. To sync up data across these environments, certainly you would need some downtime because you need to take the backup from production. You need to store it somewhere. Once the backup is complete, you need to stop the lower environment database, and then basically restore the backup, right? So it cannot be online processing. Usually you would expect some downtime, and it takes also considerable time. But there is a difference the way you can do it in Snowflake. So we'll touch base on that. And disaster recovery is something, let's say a hardware is crashed, or you have some network issue, or something goes wrong with your power supply, right? So unless you specify a disaster recovery strategy, you replicate your entire server on some other data center, this is not going to happen. I mean, unless you as an individual organization or your IT team sets this up, it is not going to happen automatically, right? But Snowflake, once you spin up this database as a service, they will internally manage the disaster recovery part. They internally maintain the architecture in a way that automatically, in case hardware goes down or something happens with your cluster, it doesn't lose your data. You will be, you are assured that they provide 99.9% of data backup, and immediately another cluster will be spun up and will get the seamless service. Yeah. System downtime is something, it can happen when the server workload is increased, or if there is any maintenance, or if there are some network related downtimes, planned or unplanned. So that time you will encounter some downtime in the service. You will not be able to access database. But with Snowflake kind of a architecture, whatever the maintenance that happens in the background, and you will get the seamless database in service. So elasticity will again touch base on this in detail. As I mentioned, it can scale out, scale up as per your demand. So that's the difference. So any question, or we can move on?
Hey, Tushar. So Anil here, sorry. So typically we are from big data team. So how do you correlate? I mean, look at big data because if you look at big data point of view, we also into distributed fashion, right? Where master slave kind of architecture there, and based on the this load is completely distributed amongst the all the slaves, right?
Yes.
Of course, it is not a cloud specific, but yes. So some extent, what we have a Spark, and of course, with big data, we have many tools and technologies over there, right? It's complete suite. Yes. So how do you look at Snowflake compared to big data, and how easy for us to adopt this?
Yeah, so whenever you set up any big data cluster, for example, Hive or any big data platform, so typically you interact with file system, HDFS, right? So where you store your data in a raw format in HDFS layer, and then on top of that you either write queries to get the data based on the external table, or you load those files, copy into and populate into Hive database, right? So Snowflake has all those features. I mean, it is actually a big data, big data capable database. It is built on top of MPP architecture itself. So in the backend, it follows the similar architecture, but in typical big data ecosystem, right? So you need to typically see your queries and your overall performance in Yarn, and see how many services are running, what perform well, or particular node goes down, right? So really, you don't need to bother about all those things in Snowflake. So it is internally managing it. All your headache is taken away by Snowflake as a service. Internally, they manage in a similar fashion, but you don't need to really worry about how many nodes are running, what is the distribution of workload. You can just specify the configuration, and on the fly also you can increase or decrease it as per your need. So typically the concepts of taking the data from a file system into a database like Hive, right? So the similar feature is available in Snowflake. Let's say if you choose Azure, Microsoft Azure as your cloud, right? So what it does is it provides a capability wherein you can create a stage. So stage is nothing but it is similar to your HDFS storage. Right? So you will be placing the source data files on the Azure Blob or Azure Data Lake Store. And then from there, you can create external tables, or you can have a copy into sort of commands which can populate the data from file system, Azure file system, into the Snowflake layer. And at the same time, if you have AWS as your preferred platform, then you can have similar functionality on top of AWS S3, and you can pull those files from there, creating external tables, stages, and load it from there. So the functionality is almost similar. The way you write queries in Hive, you can write similar queries in Snowflake. So all those capabilities have been accounted. You can work on, you can connect with different big data platforms. And this is intended to process the massive data from the analytical purpose.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on. Okay. So as I mentioned, it is built for the cloud, okay? Not specifically for cloud, because you can select any of your tools. And the beauty of it is the compute and the storage are decoupled. So usually what happens is even in big data, right? So whenever you set up a node, right? So you specify certain compute size and there would be disks associated or a physical memory associated with HDFS, right? So here also what happens is you get ample of storage with very cheap storage cost, and you can spin up multiple nodes on the fly based on your compute needs. But those compute nodes are not coupled with the storage. So you can spin up your compute capacity independent of your storage. Okay, so both are decoupled, and you can spin up your compute as per requirement and storage as per your requirement. I mean, not necessarily like, let's say if you want to add one node in big data, right? So it will eventually come, let's say a 50 GB size, 8 GB RAM and whatever, right? So if you want to add a new node, that much storage will also get added, right? But if you don't want to increase the storage, yes, you can do that in Snowflake. You can just increase the compute engines, and it will allow you to increase those without changing the storage capacity. Or if you want to do it another way, that is also pretty much possible. And yeah, on-demand scaling is one, so you can change. And ability to create logical warehouses. So warehouse, one concept I would like to clarify here is, when we say Snowflake warehouse, it is nothing but a processing engine or a processing capacity, I would say. So this word will come many times when we will discuss it. So warehouse is nothing but it's a compute capacity you can consider. It's a processing engine, I would suggest. And the way you are administrating the overall database, you are maintaining it, and a lot of features which are available, right? So those are kind of built as a service. I mean, they are inbuilt features. So let's say disaster recovery, no downtime for patching upgrades. Everything happens behind the scenes. Snowflake will make sure that your service will not go down. Even there are any patches, any upgrades which happen. Typically, otherwise, you need to take your cluster down, inform all your stakeholders about unavailability, and then you want to patch, test, and bring the server up, right? So nothing happens on Snowflake. It all happens seamlessly behind the scene. Platform availability. So you might be knowing, right? So most of these cloud platforms, they provide guarantee of 99.9% of high availability, right? So since you're hosting all the applications on those platforms, Snowflake provides the same guarantee that it doesn't go, there is no downtime as such. Okay, and restoring backups and considering backup. So automatically there are configurations wherein you can take the backups, you can restore it if required. Even the table level history is also maintained up to certain days based on your configuration. You can see what was the data on so and so date and time just by writing a simple query on the history of that particular table. It internally maintains that. You can go through the documentation later so that you will get minute details of this. Yeah, so just to give a graphical presentation of Snowflake versus the traditional architecture. Right? So let's say you know that okay, you have certain reporting or downstream consumption demand. So you specify a particular capacity for your compute on your infrastructure. Right? So if you see this red line, right? So whenever you need, you need to keep your infrastructure in a steady state. You cannot decrease anything or suddenly increase the capacity. But whereas in Snowflake, let's say on the higher capacity, you're paying more, you can increase the capacity. But as the workload goes down, the capacity can also be reduced, and you will be charged less if you reduce the capacity. And again, with the increasing demand, you can again spin up some additional clusters, or you increase your warehouse size, compute size, and that's how you will be charged higher. But you can, decrease the capacity as per your need, not like continuously running all the nodes throughout the uptime life cycle of server. Right? So that's not required, which is typically happening in the on-premise kind of databases or for the native DBs. So this is the difference. I mean, you can decrease the capacity as well. It's not just increasing the capacity, and it is a per minute kind of a billing that you need to be charged. Okay, so just a comparison between some of the artifacts. It's like a data warehouse as a service, because as we talked, it is more suitable for the analytical workloads. And whereas the traditional data warehouse is in cloud. So when we say traditional databases in cloud, so those could consider the Azure SQL databases or Azure Synapse, or you can even consider Redshift. So most of the tuning at the database level, right? So you need some sort of intervention wherein you understand, okay, this table is a bottleneck. So identify the right criteria, identify the indexing strategy, or do a partitioning. But even that also you don't need to really look, worry about when you work with a Snowflake. So you don't need to really create any index here. Snowflake engine is smart enough. They have a mechanism wherein they arrange your data in micro partitions, and you don't need to create any partitioning strategy, or you don't need to create indexes. Concurrency we talked about, right? So you can increase your concurrency slot to almost infinite level. So you can add more and more and more clusters, and you can make your queries to run in parallel, and you can auto scale those based on the queuing that happens at the database level, right? So you can set a configuration, and it will allow you to horizontally scale it. Whereas in a traditional one, you have a fixed capacity. You cannot on the fly increase capacity. Let's say some of the queries are getting piled up, right? They are in queue. Suddenly you cannot make them work in parallel unless the first set of queries are over. Those will remain in queue. The flexibility also we just talked about. So data transformation is required, but here lot of lot of connectors are provided. You can write all the SQLs within Snowflake and even do the transformation within Snowflake. So scaling, we talked about increasing the capacity. Okay, so we'll quickly touch base on the architecture of Snowflake. So if you see primarily it has got three different layers in the Snowflake architecture. The very first one, if we go from bottom up, so it is a database storage. So it's a storage capacity. This so typically your data that resides in a table, everything resides in the storage layer. Whereas the query processing is a processing layer which is decoupled from the databases. So when I was saying virtual warehouses, right? So those are the compute engines, and you can specify the number of engines or the type of compute warehouse that you need, and those will actually hit to those data storage locations, process the data, and provide it to the cloud services wherein you can actually interact with the database. So cloud services there wherein typically it allows to do authentication, access control. So the user level security, right? So who should be allowed, who should not be. So all that metadata is part of cloud service. Anything infrastructure related changes, right? So whenever you want to make any warehouse setting changes, increase warehouse, decrease number of warehouse clusters, or changing their types, right? So this cloud service is a layer which instructs the backend engine, and accordingly the warehouses would be planned. The query optimizer is also part of cloud service. Then it stores metadata. So metadata related to the database security, and whenever you process a query, right? So internally it uses some hints, some metadata about where the data is stored. So everything is placed in the cloud service layer, and of course the security part of it. So any question on this? When probably these are the concepts which you can actually go in the detail on the Snowflake website, snowflake.com. So from the certification point of view, or even from the self-learning point of view, I would recommend you to go to the Snowflake website because that's how even I personally understood the concepts and learned Snowflake, because the documentation is very, very detailed. I mean, you can find almost everything what is available in Snowflake on that particular website, and it's not so much of lengthy kind of a description. You will find very crisp and specific details on the website. You can actually understand those concepts once you start reading it. So any question on the architecture at high level? Okay, so move on. So at the end of this session, I will also share this, PPT with Avinash. You can share it with all of you guys, and you can go through some of the material. And last time I remember there were a couple of folks from City who were also planning to get themselves certified, and I think most of them also did that. So there are some questionnaires, and I don't know how many, I mean how much they are up to date, but there are some links which were compiled, and there is a Ignite location wherein some content around the Snowflake is already available. I will share those details with Avinash. She can cascade with all of you, but you can also go through that. And the certification is comparatively, very easy as compared to the other certifications. You just need to understand those concepts, and I think then you're good. Yeah, so basically, we'll go through each of those topics. So cloud services, more of different type of services which are natively available on Snowflake, and there are different components such as whenever you log in or interact with Snowflake, right? So the cloud service is a layer wherein you actually interact, and then cloud service layer internally manages the query engines and the storage. I think these all points we just talked about. Yeah. So, virtual warehouse is actually a core engine component which takes the query that end user is providing, and it does the query processing. So as I mentioned, this is again a MPP kind of architecture, massive parallel processing. So one master and multiple worker nodes. But you don't need to really worry about how many workers are there and all. So you just need to specify the warehouse size. So we'll come to that part as well. Yeah. So okay, and the beauty of this is when you say virtual warehouse, right? So let's say you have one virtual warehouse which is a small size, right? And for let's say you are ingesting the data from your OLTP applications or some ERP applications, and you are loading those files on S3 and then consuming within Snowflake, right? So for that purpose, you created a small capacity warehouse, which is probably inserting small chunk of data in Snowflake, right? And for actual data processing, you require a little higher capacity. So for that matter, you have provisioned a warehouse with a medium size or a large size, right? So, so while both the warehouses typically run in parallel, right? So they don't share the compute resources of each other. So typically, what happens in our traditional databases, right? So if you are having a 4-core, right? So whenever you start writing queries or start processing the queries on the database, so what it does is it uses the same compute, right? And it shares that compute across multiple queries, but wherein you can dedicate a warehouse for a particular type of workload. So for ETL, you can dedicate one typical warehouse, which will not interrupt with the reporting or the data extraction kind of requirements for the analytical purposes. Or for the data ingestion, you can have separate warehouse so that you can have a reserved capacity for that type of workload. You don't need to, create a single pool and everyone sharing the capacity of that. So we have virtual warehouse. It's a basically combination of your CPU, memory, and temporary storage, because whenever the data is processed, right? So internally it processes it in a cache, and that's how it manages it very efficiently. So it's a bundled combination. You get compute, memory, and temporary storage. If you increase the power of increase the type of warehouse size, you will naturally get more capacity of CPU, more memory, and more temporary space, which will allow you to process more data as compared to a small or medium. If you go for a large or X large or 2X large, it will be in multiples of those. Yeah. So, right. So whenever you write a select statement, right? So that time you actually consume the compute power because you are getting to the underlying data, you are processing the data and fetching the results out. Whereas for the DML, right, manipulating languages, so you can pretty much do delete, insert, update. You can do a copy into. Then you have certain copy into the table, which means you're extracting the data from outside file system S3 or block storage from Azure and loading it into Snowflake. So use copy into table, and vice versa. If you want to unload the data from Snowflake to any of the cloud platforms, cloud file systems, right? So you can write copy into and the location of that file system, S3 : whatever the location is, or Azure file system, right? So you can mention that, and you will be able to basically export the data out. So just keep it in mind that if you are exporting a lot of data outside of Snowflake Cloud, there are also data export charges. Those are not very high, but those charges are called as the egress charges. And if you are exporting something outside the outside the zone where your Snowflake is provisioned, then that will be costed. Will be paying charge for that. Okay, so as you were talking about, right? So in traditional system, what happens is you spin up one particular compute engine, right? Whatever the capacity you have. But if you have a ETL load, it uses the same compute. If there is a BI kind of a workload, that also consumes the same compute engine. And if there is a ad hoc query or ad hoc analysis that is going on, or data extraction, so that also uses the same compute. So basically a single compute is shared, whereas in Snowflake, you can manage it in smartly. You can create a dedicated warehouse. You can create a warehouse for BI. You can create for ETL, for ad hoc, and for any self-service kind of a BI tool. You can have a dedicated warehouse. And the beauty of it is you can measure who is consuming, how much of compute, and accordingly you can plan. So let's say if there is a marketing team and if there is a finance team, right? So you can dedicate one warehouse for marketing, one for sales, and then you can measure their cost, because the costing is happening at the warehouse level. So you can easily bifurcate the cost, and at the organization level you can charge those business units that okay, finance is consuming so much, so for the platform, I mean, they need to provision this much of cost for the data engineering. So that way you have more scalability and elasticity, because you are isolating the warehouse compute from each other. Any question on this? Okay, we'll quickly move on. Okay, so when I was talking about the different types and sizes, right? So there are two different types. One is a standard warehouse, and second is a multi-cluster warehouse. So multi-cluster meaning it's like a cloning of a particular capacity into multiple clones, right? So and the sizing of it is like a t-shirt size. So it starts from small, x small, which is a very basic kind of a compute, and credit per hour. So basically what they do is they calculate the cost in terms of credits. So they give some credits, and based on that, yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
any screen you are sharing? Because we do see.
1 second. Yeah. Is it cost? Yeah. Can you see it now? Virtual
Yeah.
warehouse is a slide.
Yeah. Now we can see.
Okay. I think it was paused. Okay. So just to recap, so there is a standard warehouse type and there's a multi-cluster warehouse. So multi-cluster is nothing but once you decide a particular capacity of a warehouse, right? So you can specify similar clones which can get created on the runtime based on your increasing workload, and those many where the clusters would be spun in the background. And if the capacity is not required, your workload is over, Snowflake will start releasing those clusters. So that's how it provides the flexibility to horizontally scale. Basically, it creates those many replicas of compute. And in terms of the size of warehouse, it starts from X small, medium, large. So they are multiple of each of them. So it's like 1, 2, 4, 8. So that way it keeps on doubling the capacity every time. And accordingly, it also provides that much of cost. So you are getting compute in the same multiples of cost. So you need to really balance the actual query processing requirement and accordingly choose the warehouse size and these are the credits per second. So it's a per second billing that you would need to pay for. So this is like a small to medium to large and so on. So these are the sizes you can choose. But typically, what Snowflake recommends is based on your workload, you need to assess whether you need small size or medium size or large size, and then choose the appropriate warehouse. On the very first day, you cannot decide that whether, okay, I'll require a large warehouse. Probably it is all together based on the way you have written queries. You might be having thousands of queries, but they are just completing within fraction of seconds. So probably you don't need to even go for the larger warehouse because you don't have any complexity to process the data. It is all very it's just a matter of few microseconds each query is taking, and probably even small warehouse can serve the purpose. So you may have to go for small warehouse, but with a multi-cluster. So multiple small warehouses would be created as and when there is a high demand, and your queries will not be piled up. If let's say 1,000 users log in, you can provide different slots by creating multiple clusters with a small warehouse, and those smaller warehouses will allow different queries to process, and once the demand reduces, those clusters will automatically get released. Okay, so there is a